All right, we're back. Episode 4 with Dave here, your sort of smart space guy. And I am joined by the unflappable Tyrade, who is here with us. And we're just going to continue, I think, our education of Ty as we're bringing her up to speed on Earth in general, space in particular, and what we're doing here. Obviously, 40 Suns is all about the pursuit of space and humanity's extraplanetary existence, which of course is a really, really big undertaking. Um, and but we have made some good progress already, and Ty has noticed that we're doing a lot better here than they were back on her planet, and as far
Mm-hmm.
as not only in terms of just in general our Earth culture and the way we treat each other, which again, sometimes it seems like we don't treat each other very well at all, but by and large, most of us are relatively decent to each other, and we do have the capacity to work together. Obviously, we have quite an extensive and advanced civilization going on here, so the evidence would seem to indicate that no matter any conflicts and other arguments to the contrary, we have been able to get this far. So we wouldn't have been able to get this far if more of us were mean to each other than we're good to each other. And so we do have that going for us, which I know is a bit different than on your world, which is sadly was kind of nearing the end when you were last there. But the biggest thing for us is that cooperation and creating the opportunities to live elsewhere and to kind of have that extraplanetary existence. So we know you have questions, and so let's just continue. Let's continue with answering Ty's curiosity. Um,
Yeah, so my first question is on your opinion, how expensive is space?
Space is very expensive and very, very expensive, insanely expensive. Money has been a threat already, and we're only like 4 episodes in, and we've already talked about it. I think this will be like the third time we've talked about money and how important money is to, really accomplish anything. It is the measure by which we progress. Everything has a lot to do with profit. If it's not profitable, it's not likely that it's going to happen. So
Mm-hmm.
space needs to become profitable. And what's happening is right now, it actually is profitable. And that's why a lot of private companies, like we talked about in the last episode, are moving into space and are starting to do things in terms of launches and looking at, how to move into space. Satellites are one thing, orbit is one thing. Going further, like to the moon, for example, or an even further objective for us is Mars, which is, a little bit longer off, but that would be the next logical objective for us. Asteroids are another objective, being able to land on and mine asteroids. We've already actually sent probes to asteroids where we've been able to remove material, small amounts, but bring back sample material. The Japanese have done that. The Americans here have done that. So we've demonstrated the ability to do something like that. Asteroids are a huge, huge, source of resources, and so
How are
we
asteroid
use.
sources of resources?
They have metals, they have helium, three. There's lots of materials that we need and we use here on Earth, and rather than having to mine them on Earth, we could go and mine them from asteroids off Earth. So we basically preserve
Oh,
Earth. We don't have to dig and do a lot of damage to our own planet. We can go get these resources elsewhere. There are companies gearing up to mine the moon and to go there and extract resources and bring them back. These are all big, big, expensive undertakings, but if they can be demonstrated to be profitable, again, coming back to the profit, we're going to see them happening. And there are, again, companies that are looking very seriously at doing this and that are investing money in doing it with the idea that they'll be able to bring these things back and make money on it. So
wow.
it is very expensive. Think about anything that you would do in your everyday life. Well, what you've been able to experience so far here on Earth. Look around at the various things from building buildings to flying airplanes, driving cars, building things, whatever. and the amount of resources and the amount of money it takes to do that. Imagine taking all of that into another location altogether, into space, to the moon or further. It's going to take a lot. It's going to take a lot of
Mm-hmm.
money to do it, and it is going to be very expensive. But we need to be willing to spend that money, and that's why I think
Right.
a lot of these companies are now. They see the value in it, but more importantly, we as a culture, the people of Earth need to be willing to spend money on it. They need to agree that this is important to do. It's interesting. I mean, I like fancy stuff. I'm sure you're seeing just how much fancy stuff we have here on Earth. We have lots of what everything from jewelry to perfumes to fancy clothes and purses and you name it. There's like a lot of very expensive things, expensive cars, etc. We're willing to spend a lot of money on things like that. Interestingly, three of the, and I can't name them right now, but three of the largest companies on this planet are actually luxury companies, companies
Really?
like Chanel. Again, I can't think of them offhand, but they're the companies that do fancy alcohol, fancy jewelry, expensive makeup, clothes, think of any luxury item that isn't something that you actually need, but that you really, really want. Like you want to have a $5,000 purse, for example. You
Okay.
probably only need a purse that costs $5 or $10 or something would do the same thing for you. But it's something about that, extra luxury value. But it is so big as an industry on this planet. Those three companies are three of the biggest companies. They're in the top 10 companies in terms of revenue. So that gives you an idea of the things that we are saying are important. And again, I'm not being a socialist or a communist here. I love that stuff too. I think it's great to have a nice Bugatti to drive around in. It costs you $2 million, and there's always going to be a market for that. All I'm saying is if we're willing to decide as a society, as a culture, that we'll spend that kind of money on those sorts of things,
Mm-hmm.
we could also, it would seem to me, decide that we're willing to spend a lot of money on what it's going to take to get into space. So space is expensive, but it's worth it. And I'm convinced if we decide it's worth it and we're willing to spend the money on it and spend the time and resources on it, we'll make it. I mean, it'll happen quickly. We're seeing it right now with the private companies doing it because they are seeing the value in it and they are spending the money, and it's happening very quickly. Like we talked about in the last episode, it's happening very
Right.
quickly. And it has to do with the private companies and the money. So
And do
space
you
is,
think with space making a profit, is it more of like a necessity profit or for something that you need to do, or a profit just because it's like cool to go to space, or is it because you like need the fuel?
because we
Like
need,
the profit that's made, is it for things out of necessity or things just because they're cool?
yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of both. I think we need to have that kind of that larger, more idealistic view of what we need to do to secure humanity's future by securing an extraplanetary existence and the ability to live elsewhere. So there's
Mm-hmm.
that aspect of it. But then there's the very real reality of money, and everything needs to be exchangeable, right? So in order to get the exchange, money is what we use to measure exchange. In order to get the exchange, we need to be able to justify what we're doing by making it profitable. So it has to be a little bit of both. We have to be able to, when we go and do these things that are taking us to space and making money on them, then that money we make funds the ability to continue to do it. So it's a it's a circular, kind of thing, and that's why the money is important. But we need to be able to. We also want to have that bigger vision to go and do it.
Right. What about like for the people who don't have that bigger vision and, they're just living their life here, they're not involved. Do you think it's enough just to survive on Earth?
Yeah, and that's the thing. For most of us, simple survival is going to be enough. I mean, me included. Make enough money to pay your mortgage, maybe get a new TV, take a vacation. That sort of thing. Just simple, basic survival is going to be enough. But to really make it big and go into space and more of us to go into space and to be able to build the infrastructure that we need in order to become extraplanetary, that is going to require surviving in abundance. So we really, I think, as a group, even though individually we might not all just become multimillionaires overnight, we may not survive at that level. As a group, as a planet, we need to think in terms of abundance. So we need to survive in abundance in order to really make it into space. So yeah, it's not enough just to survive, but we need to go further than that and actually go beyond our basic survival needs in order to get into space. Yeah.
Not just live off necessity, but actually make it where you're thriving.
Right.
Almost
Yeah,
as your
exactly.
necessity.
Where you're going for more, where you're scaling in a big way. Yeah.
That's wow. How do we raise awareness for that?
Well, we're here trying to do it in our own small way with this, 40 Suns, what you're doing, spreading the word, getting the word out. I mean, that's really the only way it happens. It kind of starts with each of us. And one of the biggest ways to spread any message is through word of mouth. I mean, there are obviously lots of ways to get information, but the way most of us get information, that we actually act on, or the way we change our minds about things, is from our friends, from our families, from our opinion leaders, from people that we trust, that we interact with, and that we respect. So if we're each kind of, that's that old saying, you tell two friends and they tell two friends and they tell two friends, it kind of goes exponentially. So the way we raise awareness is just by talking about space, what we're doing here. And if everybody that we're reaching then goes out and does the same thing, and then they encourage people to do the same thing, it just extrapolates from there. So,
wow. So talking about it really can just be a good push.
there's so many of us on this planet, and so many of us aren't paying attention, that if we begin to do this and get more and more people talking about it, more and more people pay that alone, obviously some of us have to take action. Some of us actually have to actually do things in order for space to become a reality, but that will happen if everybody is talking about it. So that's really step one, is raise awareness. And the way we do that is just talk about it. Pay attention to it. It's about that simple. Yeah. Yeah.
That makes it pretty simple.
Very good. Well, we will end another episode there. And we'll continue on the next episode and continue with Ty's questions. And hopefully some of these questions are appealing and reaching some of you out there as well. I'm sure a lot of you have the same questions that Ty does. Even though she's new to this world, a lot of us don't really know what's going on either. So hopefully this is helping, and we'll see you in the next episode.